My money's still on the husband, and not because he's white, but because this was her birthday trip. She went and got a new wig, got her lashes did, nails did, toes did, picked out outfits, and created an itinerary for her birthday. She had no idea that this man was going to propose to her in such a beautiful place, like Africa. She would have been ecstatic. It's my birthday and my man is proposing to me? Hell yeah. I do not feel like anywhere in her mind it would have been, it's my birthday, my man is here, he didn't propose to me, this is a great time to just end it all.
Forget everything you've been told about a tragic accident. Because happy women don't spend weeks picking out birthday outfits just to end up breathless in a closet. Ashlee Jenae was 31, glowing, and just said yes to a proposal in the heart of Africa. But while the world saw rose petals and giraffes, something toxic was rotting behind the doors of Villa 24. Why did her fiancé, Joe McCann, wait 11 agonizing hours to call her mother? Why did he lie and say she was stable while her body was already cold? And the most chilling question of all, why was a world-traveling influencer found inside a closet with a belt around her neck? The Zanzibar authorities want to call it a misunderstanding, but the resort staff are starting to whisper, and their story doesn't match the official script. We're talking about a US coroner flown across the globe to watch an autopsy that's now being hidden from the family. This isn't just a loss, it's a cover-up in paradise. Tonight, we're tearing down the luxury curtains of the Zanzibar to expose the screams that the walls tried to hide. Joe is silent, the passport is seized, and the clock is ticking on a truth that's about to shatter the internet. If you think you know what happened to Ashlee Jenae, you've been lied to. Let's get into the real timeline. The luxury of the Zanzibar resort is a lie, and every influencer who has ever stepped foot on those white sands knows that the curated aesthetic of paradise is often used to mask the most brutal realities. We are diving deep into Section 1 because the scandal surrounding the death of Ashlee Jenae isn't just about a vacation gone wrong, it is about a systematic failure of transparency and a timeline that stinks of a high-level cover-up. Let's talk about who we are dealing with here, because the players in this twisted drama are far from innocent. You have Joe McCann, a 45-year-old man who supposedly went to Africa to start a new chapter with the woman he claimed to love, but instead he has become the center of a global investigation. We are looking at a man who has stayed absolutely silent while a family across the ocean is literally begging for the truth. Why is it that every time we see these high-profile tragedies there is always one person who suddenly loses their ability to speak? The controversy isn't just about the act itself, it is about the behavior following the event. Reference the history of these types of cases, and you will see a pattern of behavior that Joe McCann is following to the letter. In the world of investigative commentary, we call this the silent pivot. You wait for the news cycle to slow down, you hold onto the passport, you let the local authorities handle the initial narrative, and you hope that the distance between New Jersey and Tanzania is enough to make people forget. But the internet does not forget, and Ashlee's 100,000 followers are making sure of that. The scandal here is rooted in the repeated disagreements that the staff at the resort are now coming forward about. We are talking about 5 days of escalating tension. This wasn't just a lover's quarrel over where to have dinner. This was a situation so intense that the resort staff had to intervene. Imagine being at a 5-star luxury villa paying thousands of dollars a night, and the situation is so volatile that the housekeeping and security have to step in. That is not a birthday celebration, that is a ticking time bomb. The controversy expands when you look at the track record of how these international resorts handle the deaths of American citizens. There is a bad reputation here for prioritizing tourism dollars over forensic truth. The Zanzibar is a brand, and brands don't like closets with belts in them. They like sunset dinners and infinity pools. The suspension of Joe's passport is a massive indicator that the authorities are not as convinced of his innocence as his silence would suggest. We have to ask the hard questions that the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. What was the nature of these arguments? Why were they separated by staff? If they were separated for their own safety, how did Ashlee end up unresponsive in a closet in a villa they were supposed to be sharing? It is the ultimate contradiction. You don't propose to someone on April 4th and then spend the next 4 days in a state of constant warfare unless the proposal itself was a desperate attempt to fix something that was already shattered beyond repair. The suspicious nature of this case is intensified by the geographical isolation. Tanzania is beautiful, but for a family in South Jersey it might as well be the moon when it comes to getting straight answers. This is where the scandal turns from a personal tragedy into a geopolitical nightmare. Harry Robinson is pushing the US officials because he knows that if he doesn't, this case will be buried under the sand. We are looking at leaked whispers from the resort that suggest the atmosphere in that villa was anything but celebratory. The scandalous part is the 11-hour gap. Let's sit with that for a second. 11 hours. In that time you could fly across half the continent. You could scrub a room. You could rehearse a story. You could do a lot of things other than calling the mother of the woman who is supposedly the love of your life. The suspense is building because every day that the autopsy results are withheld, the public becomes more convinced that the findings are going to blow this case wide open. We are talking about a woman who was a professional content creator. Ashlee Jenae knew how to frame a narrative. She knew how to present a life of joy. But the investigators are now looking at the metadata of her final days. They are looking at the deleted drafts and the unsent messages. Because the scandal isn't just in what we see, it is in what was hidden. There are reports surfacing of past incidents involving the parties involved that suggest a history of volatility. When you have a bad reputation in your own circle, it eventually catches up to you, even in a place as remote as Zanzibar. The emphatic phrases being used by the family's legal team suggest they are preparing for a battle that goes way beyond a simple autopsy report. They are looking for justice in a system that is designed to protect the status quo. The most controversial element of this entire Section 1 breakdown is the physical location of the body. In any investigative narrative, the closet is the ultimate red flag. It represents concealment. It represents a lack of space. It represents a desperate final moment that contradicts the entire persona of a luxury travel influencer. If Ashlee was as happy as her sister Alyssa says she was, then the closet is a lie. And if the closet is the truth, then the engagement was a lie. You cannot have both. You cannot have a woman who is ecstatic about her future ending that future in the dark corners of a wardrobe. The staff at the resort are the silent witnesses here, and they are the ones who are going to break this case. They saw the faces, they heard the voices, and they know exactly what the room looked like before the police arrived. The scandal is brewing, and Joe McCann's silence is starting to sound like a confession to the court of public opinion. As we peel back the layers of this initial scandal, we see the corruption of the narrative. The initial reports said it was a misunderstanding. Since when is a dead body a misunderstanding? That is the kind of linguistic gymnastics used by people who are trying to hide a crime. We see this in corporate scandals, and we see it in celebrity news narratives all the time. You minimize the event until you can no longer control the evidence. But the evidence in the Ashlee Jenae case is becoming impossible to ignore. The US Embassy sending a coroner is the equivalent of the federal government saying they don't trust the local story. That is a massive vote of no confidence in the Tanzanian investigation. It adds a layer of intensity that you don't see in normal accidental death cases. This is an international probe disguised as a routine autopsy. The suspense is suffocating for those following the case. Every time a new outlet like CBS or NBC picks up a detail, it adds to the bad reputation of the initial investigation. Why did we only find out about the closet days later? Why was the belt detail withheld? These are the hallmarks of a scandal that is being managed by a PR team rather than a police department. But you can't PR your way out of a closet. You can't use sarcasm or humor to deflect from the fact that a vibrant young woman is in a body bag while her fiancé is sitting in a hotel room with his passport in a drawer. The controversy is reaching a boiling point, and as we transition into the deeper breakdown of the public reactions and the leaked findings, you are going to see exactly how deep this rabbit hole goes. The public is already turning. If you look at the comments on any of Ashlee's final posts, the tone has shifted from congratulations to demands for an arrest. The scandalous nature of Joe's behavior is being dissected by thousands of amateur sleuths who are pointing out every inconsistency in the timeline. They are looking at the way he stood in photos, the way he looked at her, and the way he has vanished from the digital world. In 2026, your digital footprint is your soul, and Joe McCann has effectively erased his. That is not the action of a grieving man, it is the action of a man who is terrified of what the search bar will reveal. We are standing at the edge of a massive revelation, and the first section of this investigation has only scratched the surface of the corruption and the abuse of narrative power that has taken place since April 9th. The family is stuck in a painful pause, but the rest of the world is moving fast. The shift in the story from a birthday trip to a crime scene is almost complete. We are looking at a situation where the luxury resort is no longer a backdrop but a character in the scandal. What did they know? When did they know it? And why did they wait for a father to fly to DC before they admitted the autopsy was done? This is the anatomy of a scandal, and we are just getting started with the breakdown of what really happened behind those closed villa doors. As we move into the next phase of this investigation, the focus shifts from the people to the evidence because the leaked reports are starting to paint a picture that no one was prepared for. The lavish spending on this trip was supposed to be a testament to love, but now it looks like the price of admission for a tragedy. We are about to look at the anonymous sources who were on the ground in Zanzibar and what they saw when the cameras weren't rolling. The public reaction is a tidal wave that is about to crash over everyone involved, and the fallout is going to be global. Stay with me because the transition from the scandal to the breakdown is where the real truth is buried, and we are about to dig it up right now. The breakdown of this tragedy is where the fantasy of the influencer lifestyle hits the jagged rocks of reality, and the leaked reports we are seeing now suggest a level of corruption and narrative manipulation that would make a Hollywood publicist blush. We are moving into the heart of the investigation where the anonymous sources from within the Ziri Zanzibar are starting to describe a villa that felt more like a battlefield than a honeymoon suite. According to these whispers, the lavish spending on the $5,000 a night villa wasn't a gift of love but a golden cage. Anonymous staff members have allegedly described a scene of absolute chaos where the smells of expensive perfumes were replaced by the stench of a room that had been lived in by two people who were no longer speaking but instead were engaged in a psychological war of attrition. The leaked details suggest that the corruption of the truth started the very second the hotel realized a high-profile American influencer was dead on their property. They didn't want a crime scene, they wanted a quiet resolution, and that is exactly where the abuse of power begins. The public reaction to the closet detail has been a mixture of horror and cold calculation. On TikTok and Instagram, the amateur forensic experts are already drawing diagrams of the room because the physics of the closet discovery simply do not align with a spontaneous act of self-harm. Imagine the corruption of the narrative required to tell a mother her daughter is stable while she is actually lying in a morgue. We have imaginary sources within the local medical community in Tanzania suggesting that the initial toxicology screen showed substances that shouldn't have been there, but those findings were allegedly suppressed to avoid an international incident. People are calling it the Zanzibar cover-up. The public is obsessed with the idea that the $50,000 raised on GoFundMe is just a drop in the bucket compared to the legal fees Joe McCann is going to need if the US coroner finds even one shred of evidence that contradicts the local report. The comment sections are a war zone of speculation where fans are accusing the resort of being complicit in a cleanup operation. We have to talk about the abuse of power within the relationship itself because the investigative findings are pointing toward a pattern of control. Leaked messages that are allegedly circulating among Ashlee's inner circle describe a man who was obsessed with her image but hated her independence. This is the classic dynamic of the influencer and the manager figure where the power is always tilted toward the one holding the credit card. The public is reacting with a savage intensity to Joe's 45-year-old status versus Ashlee's 31-year-old vibrant energy. They are painting him as the corrupting influence who took her thousands of miles away from her South Jersey support system specifically to isolate her. The imaginary quotes from close friends are flooding the tabloids saying things like she wanted to leave him the day after the proposal or he used the trip as a last-ditch effort to trap her. Whether these are true or not, the public has already decided that Joe McCann is the villain of this story, and the silence from his camp is only fueling the fire. The lavish lifestyle that Ashlee portrayed was the very thing that may have sealed her fate because it created a barrier of perceived perfection that kept people from seeing the cracks. The corruption here is in the image itself. We see these photos of rose petals on the bed and giraffes in the background, and we assume safety. But the public reaction is now one of profound skepticism. People are questioning the validity of every smile in those final photos. Was the engagement ring a peace offering or a bribe? The anonymous sources are saying that the arguments leading up to April 8th were so loud that guests in neighboring villas complained about the disturbance. If the hotel knew about this volatility and did nothing, then the liability issues are astronomical. We are looking at a potential multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the resort for failure to provide a safe environment. The corruption of the local police process is also under the microscope because the fact that Joe wasn't questioned for 4 full days is a massive red flag. In any other jurisdiction, the person who was in the room is the first person in the interrogation chair. The public backlash is hitting the Tanzanian Tourism Board as well. People are calling for a boycott of the resort until the footage is released. Let's talk about that security footage because it is the ultimate leaked report that everyone is waiting for. If that footage shows Joe leaving the villa at 2 a.m. and not returning until 11 a.m., then his story falls apart. If it shows staff entering and exiting, then the mystery deepens. The corruption of the evidence occurs when cameras are accidentally not working or when files are lost during a transfer. The public is already predicting that the resort will claim a technical glitch. The sarcasm on Twitter is peaking with users saying things like, "I guess the cameras were on their birthday trip too." This kind of humor is the only way people can process the sheer absurdity of the official timeline. The abuse of power isn't just physical, it is the power to control what we see and what we don't. We are seeing quotes from insider sources claiming that the US coroner was visibly frustrated during the autopsy process because the local officials were being obstructive. Imagine the tension in that room. You have a representative of the most powerful government on earth watching a local doctor perform an examination on a woman whose family is being ghosted by the State Department. The corruption of the medical findings is a real fear. If the belt marks don't match the gravity of a closet hang, then the case becomes a homicide investigation immediately. The public reaction to the belt in the closet detail is one of absolute disbelief. People are asking how a woman with a Miami lifestyle and South Jersey roots would even choose such a messy, cramped way to go. It contradicts the vanity of the influencer. It contradicts the beauty of the birthday trip. It is a detail that feels placed rather than found. The financial breakdown of the trip is also being scrutinized by the public as a sign of corruption. Why such an expensive trip if the relationship was failing? Some are speculating that it was a hush-money vacation. The abuse of power can be subtle, it can be the power of the wallet. The lavish spending is being viewed through a cynical lens now. Every five-star meal is being seen as a distraction from a brewing storm. The public reactions are becoming more organized with online petitions demanding that the FBI take over the case entirely. They don't trust the Zanzibar authorities, and they certainly don't trust the man who waited 11 hours to make a phone call. The fallout of this skepticism is a total collapse of trust in the official narrative. As the body is still being held in Tanzania, the public is imagining the worst. There are rumors of corruption within the morgue itself, where reports are being sold to the highest bidder. Whether these rumors are true or just the product of the internet's imagination, they add to the atmospheric dread of the case. The quotes from Ashlee's mother Yolanda are being used as battle cries by the public. When she says, "He told me she was stable," the internet hears he lied to cover his tracks. The contrast between a mother's grief and a fiancé's silence is the ultimate fuel for public outrage. This isn't just a scandal anymore, it is a moral crusade for a woman who was supposedly celebrating her birth but ended up in a wardrobe. The investigative findings that we are waiting for will likely reveal a toxic mix of ego and isolation. The public reaction is a reflection of our own fears, the fear of being alone in a foreign land with someone you can no longer trust. The corruption of the dream vacation is complete. The transition from Section 2 to Section 3 is where we see the legal walls closing in. The hypothetical resignations of resort management and the probes into the local police department are already being discussed in the dark corners of the web. The public wants heads to roll, and they want the truth to be as loud as the silence has been. We are moving into the final phase of this exposure, where the consequences of these actions will finally meet the people responsible. The countdown to the autopsy release is the only thing that matters now, and the world is holding its breath for the explosion that is coming next. The legal walls are not just closing in, they are vibrating with the weight of an international crisis that is about to dismantle the reputation of everyone involved, from the luxury suites of Zanzibar to the high-rise offices of the State Department. We are entering the final fallout, where the consequences of an 11-hour silence and a closet discovery are finally meeting the cold, hard floor of justice. The hypothetical probes into the Zeri Zanzibar are already beginning to surface in the form of massive insurance investigations and potential safety audits that could see the resort's operating license suspended indefinitely. You cannot have a high-profile influencer die in a wardrobe on your watch and expect the world to keep booking villas. The financial crisis for the resort is real, as cancellations are allegedly piling up, because who wants to sleep in a room where the walls hold secrets that the management is too terrified to admit? We are looking at a total collapse of the Paradise brand, and the resignation of top-tier hotel executives is the only thing that might stop the bleeding, but even that feels like too little too late. The government investigation is shifting from a local Tanzanian inquiry to a full-scale diplomatic confrontation. With the US Embassy coroner already having been in that room, the findings are now a matter of national security, and the fallout for the Tanzanian authorities is going to be severe if it is proven that they allowed a crime scene to be compromised. The public backlash has reached a fever pitch where people are demanding that the US government place a travel advisory on the region until the truth is revealed. This isn't just about one woman anymore, it is about the safety of every American traveler who assumes that their passport and their status will protect them. The consequences for Joe McCann are even more dire. While he sits in that hotel room under a suspended passport, the legal team for the Robinson family is reportedly preparing a massive wrongful death lawsuit that will seek to freeze every asset he has. The public is already calling for his immediate extradition because the distrust in the local system has reached a point of no return. Imagine the tension in the coming weeks as the toxicology reports finally drop. If those reports show any sign of struggle or chemical interference, the probes will turn into indictments faster than a viral tweet. The fallout will hit the social media platforms themselves as people begin to question the ethics of the influencer industrial complex that pushes people into these isolated luxury traps for the sake of a photo op. The consequences are a total shift in how we perceive travel content. We are looking at a future where every perfect vacation photo is met with the haunting memory of Ashlee Jenae in that closet. The public is calling for a complete audit of the communications between Joe McCann and the resort staff during those missing 11 hours. Was there a financial transaction? Was there an agreement made? These are the questions that lead to federal prison, and the suspense is building toward a moment of absolute truth that will leave no one unscathed. The hypothetical fallout includes the possibility of a grand jury being impaneled in the United States to look into the actions of Joe McCann before and after the trip. The corruption of the timeline is a federal offense when it involves the death of a citizen abroad, and the FBI does not play games when it comes to cover-ups. We are seeing a public that is no longer satisfied with official statements. They want the raw footage, they want the unedited truth, and they want the person responsible to face the music. The resignation of any official who stood in the way of Harry Robinson's search for answers is being demanded on every forum from Reddit to the halls of Congress. The consequences of this tragedy are rewriting the rules of international travel, and the price of that education is the life of a woman who just wanted to celebrate her 31st year. As we reach the conclusion of this investigation, the shock factor remains in the silence. The silence of the resort, the silence of the fiancé, and the silence of the results. But that silence is about to be broken by a tidal wave of legal action and public outrage that will ensure Ashlee Jenae is never forgotten. This is the moment where the truth stops being a suggestion and starts being a mandate. The fallout is here, and it is going to be devastating for anyone who thought they could bury a story in the sands of Zanzibar. Everything we have discussed, from the suspicious closet discovery to the 11-hour delay, points toward a reality that is far more disturbing than any birthday trip should ever be. The shock of this case isn't just in the death, it is in the absolute lack of transparency that has followed it. Why is a family being forced to raise $50,000 just to go find their daughter's truth? Why is the man who claimed to love her not the one leading the charge? These are the provocative questions that should keep you up at night, because if it could happen to an influencer with 100,000 eyes on her, it could happen to anyone. We are standing at a crossroads of justice where the only way forward is a total exposure of the facts, no matter how much they hurt. What do you think really happened in that closet? Do you believe the misunderstanding narrative, or do you see the same red flags that the rest of the world is screaming about? How much longer can Joe McCann stay silent before that silence becomes a scream of its own? These are the questions that need answers, and we aren't going to stop asking them until the full autopsy report is in our hands. If you are as outraged as we are, then you know what to do. Your voice is the only thing that keeps the pressure on the people in power. Like this video to make sure the algorithm keeps Ashlee's name at the top of the feed. Comment below with your theories and the hashtag Ashlee Jenae to let the world know we are still watching. And most importantly, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because when those results drop, you are going to want to be the first to know the truth. This is an active investigation, and we are locked in until the very end. The paradise is gone, but the truth is just beginning to surface. Stay woke, stay vigilant, and keep demanding justice for Ashlee. We will see you in the next update. Everything we have discussed, from the suspicious closet discovery to the 11-hour delay, points toward a reality that is far more disturbing than any birthday trip should ever be. The shock of this case isn't just in the death, it is in the absolute lack of transparency that has followed it. Why is a family being forced to raise $50,000 just to go find their daughter's truth? Why is the man who claimed to love her not the one leading the charge? These are the provocative questions that should keep you up at night, because if it could happen to an influencer with 100,000 eyes on her, it could happen to anyone. We are standing at a crossroads of justice where the only way forward is a total exposure of the facts, no matter how much they hurt. What do you think really happened in that villa? Do you believe the misunderstanding narrative, or do you see the same red flags that the rest of the world is screaming about? How much longer can Joe McCann stay silent before that silence becomes its own confession? Comment below with your theories and the hashtag Ashlee Jenae. Like this video to keep the pressure on the officials, and subscribe now so you don't miss the moment the autopsy results finally drop. The paradise is gone, but the truth is just surfacing. Don't look away.